Thank you, Rabbi Sharf. So this is Shabbat Breshit. We're back to the beginning of the Torah, and for some of us, some of our favorite narratives in the Torah. In these early chapters, we have some of the most colorful narratives and favorite children's stories from the Bible in these early Torah portions of creation, the Adam and Eve in the garden, Noah's Ark, the animals going 2 by 2, a lot of really wonderful stories for children, and profound meaning in these words that have had generations of adults going back to them over and over again. Every generation, every year, we as Jews go back to all these narratives, seeking and finding deeper and deeper meaning that speak to us in our own time. Asking these opening chapters, including our own, which covers actually some really, in just a lot of ground of the creation of the world and the human being, Adam and Eve in the garden, and Cain and Abel. That's all this week. These portions raise some really big questions, some of the biggest questions. What does it mean to be human? Why are we here? How did any of this get here? Why is any of this here? And the focus at the beginning is also on questions trying to explain, how does evil come into the world? Why is it that human beings, that we have this capacity to do wrong, capacity for violence? These questions are raised and not completely easily answered, not so clearly answered, requiring us to engage with the text. And that's why I think the Bible, particularly the books of the Torah, continue to be so popular, with new commentaries written every year. Every year, our movement frequently is publishing new commentaries, thank goodness, because there's just more and more for us to learn, and it prompts us to ask these questions and others. So on the question of why we're here, the Torah is really clear. All of this, from the existence of the universe, our world, to all of us as human beings, this is really because it's God's intention, the intention of the divine, that we're here. Taking the Torah as a sacred text, which is more poetry than science, we continue to engage with the text, trying to understand exactly what does it mean to be human? What's really unique about us as human beings? There's just one detail in the Torah portion that I'd like to think about with you tonight, and that is what is said in the creation of the human being. What's said about the creation of the human being? Really, in chapter 1, we have two accounts of creation in chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 1 begins with each day. The beginning, God says, "Let there be light," and there's light, and God saw that it was good. And then we continue day after day with a pattern set and followed for the first 5 days, where God calls something into being, it comes into being, and then it says God saw that it was good. Vayar Elohim ki tov. The 6th day breaks the pattern. The first part follows the pattern. That is the creation of animals on the 6th day. After creating the animals, after calling them forth from the earth, and the animals come to be, God sees that it's good, Vayar Elohim ki tov. And then we have the creation of the human being, and it's introduced in a different way. Here, God says, "Let us make the human being in our image and our likeness." And then in the next verse, it says, "Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tsalmo." God created, using a word for creation that hasn't been used except in the opening verse, talking about the creation of the world as a whole. Bara is only a verb used for creating when God creates. Not every language, we don't have that in English. We don't have a verb in English that's just for God creating. But we do in Hebrew. And we say it most often in blessings over food. Borei Peri Agafen, God creates. We thank God for creating the fruit of the vine. And that verb is used for the human being. But most interesting to me is at the end of the sixth day, it doesn't say, Vayar Elohim Ki Tov. Instead, there's no evaluation given of the human being, which is really interesting. It's as if the jury is out still. God isn't quite sure. And we have some really juicy details about how God is creating the human. At the end of the sixth day, God looks at everything God has created and sees what? Vayar Elohim Ki Tov Ma'od. Sees that it's very good. And this is sometimes attributed to the creation of the human being, but it's actually not saying that. It's about creation as a whole. Everything that God did the first 6 days. Again, the evaluation of the human being, God's evaluation of the human being comes later, and it's after Cain and Abel, and it's a little bit on the more negative side. But the promise of creation is, I think, this beautiful idea that we give lip service to, but I don't know how often we think about what it means that we were created in the divine image, that every human being is created in the image of the divine. The Torah doesn't say what that actually means. So that's what I want to think about with you. And before I share with you what a couple of our wonderful commentators through the ages have said, I wonder if we could just take a moment to think about it. It's maybe not the first time you've thought about this, but come to it fresh. And let's take a moment and turn to the person next to you and share with each other one idea each of how you understand what it means that human beings are created in the image of the divine. How do you understand that? No one's too young to answer this question. So there'll be more time later to pursue these conversations. I'm wondering if anybody wants to share, if we could maybe hear 2 or 3 shared with the full group. Anybody want to volunteer? Come on. Yes, brave soul. You, yeah. So that that there's something about being human that's bigger than each of us. Like it's more, being human is more than the sum of its parts in a sense? Is that beautiful? Beautiful, thank you. Anybody else? Yes. The creative spark itself. So what do we know of God at this point? God is creating. That's the main thing we know about God. So what a beautiful idea, that being created in the image of the divine, we are creators. We can create. the arts. We have beautiful music tonight, but I love all the dimensions you gave it. Love, relationships, connections. Thank you so much. It makes me wonder what the bat mitzvah is going to say tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah? Was there another hand up? Yes, please. Loud? So I'm a little hard of hearing, and I'm far away. I didn't hear.
I heard Aurelia say, God took the time to create each of us individually. Say again what you said about the mind. To weave our own minds. Is that a good summary? Thank you.
To weave our own lives? With the
Our minds. Our minds.
Our minds. Beautiful. Part of what makes us unique as human beings is the world within our own minds. And with the comment that came before, with the creative ability to connect with each other and share. Beautiful. These are such beautiful ideas. Thank you so, so much. And really, maybe later we can have a little time over the refreshments outside and people can continue. So on this last comment, it's a great lead-in. I wanted to share just a couple of the commentaries, the wisdom of our commentaries. It's questions like this, sparked often by passages in the Torah, that really open up what I like to think of as the big Jewish conversations about these big questions. And Rashi is often pointed to as one of the most important medieval commentators. He draws from rabbinic midrash, and his comment on this is just 2 words on what it means to be created in God's image. Where did I moved ahead? Yeah. Lahavin ulahaskil. Lahavin ulahaskil, to understand and to discern. So the intellect, our minds, our intellectual capacity, and you may recognize that phrase, lahavin ulahaskil. Not just 2 Hebrew words, but these 2 words we recognize as being in the paragraph before the Shema in the morning liturgy, where we're thanking God for the gift of Torah, and in these words celebrating our ability to think, to use our minds, and our gratitude to God for giving us the Torah, enabling us to use our minds to better understand and discern God's hopes for us and guidance for how to live by the wisdom of Torah, the narratives and the laws, how to live in the world. And that's what we're trying to do right now. Another one of our commentators, one who I really love, I think of him as the Renaissance man, and that's Sforno, Ovadia ben Jacob Sforno, an Italian commentator who emphasizes that what distinguishes us as human beings, and this phrase points to, is our freedom to choose, our ability to make choices, to choose our words and our actions. And that this freedom points to our divine potential, our being created in the divine image, our divine potential, which is incredible, unending, infinite, and also carries risks, right? So for me, one of my favorite things in thinking about this question is what was for me a new idea by Rabbi Shai Held, an Orthodox rabbi living today, who comments that actually when we look at this phrase in its own historical context, the significance of it really is really lifted up. And we sometimes lose sight of what it meant in its own historical context. So in the ancient Near East, what is it that we should be contrasting this with? It's the idea who was created in God's image, not every human being, but the ruler, like in Egypt, Pharaoh. The ruler, sometimes the priest, but more often the king, is the one and only one who is God's representative on earth and created in the image of the divine, with that connection. And I thought, wow, that's really, really important for us to think about and to consider, again, not just this, maybe what's important is not any one thing that we think of in relation to this, our mind, our intellect, our creative capacity, but what was said, I think the first comment, the infinite value of the human, of each human life, each person with the spark of the divine, the spark of the creative, of the creator within. Every human being. Again, this is something I think we even give lip service to, but don't always stop and really think about what it means to say every human being, not just the king, not just our leaders, not just our people, but every person is created in the image of the divine. Every person is a holy soul. What would it really mean for us to take this seriously on a daily basis and to choose our words and our actions to try and really live up to this idea and treat each other this way as a holy soul? I think of it as what it means when we try to create holy communities, like this community. A community, our synagogues, our schools, all places of faith, all our communities, to honor, to be a place where everyone really can thrive, where everyone can be seen, and where we really try to see the full humanity in every person and to remember to live up to that, to respond to each other. Even when they're not acting that way and we've slipped and we're not acting that way, to remind ourselves and lift ourselves up again. So for us as Jews and as Americans, we have a special opportunity tomorrow. It's No King's Day. I don't know how big a thing this is in Omaha. I don't know if people here are planning. I'm seeing some people clapping. I was actually thrilled when I realized that this idea is in this week's Torah portion, that the Torah gives this idea to Western society, to the world, of every human being, not just kings, every human being created in the image of the divine. And we have this opportunity tomorrow to stand up and give voice to our belief that this is what the United States was really built on. It was this idea. We were born as a nation because people challenged the rule of the king, the monarchy in Great Britain, right? And our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, this is all based on the foundational idea of the incredible dignity of every human being. Who was defined as included in that definition? We fell short in the early days of our country, but we've been working hard over the decades and centuries to expand that. And I think it's probably a fair assumption on my part that everybody in this room is committed to the doors widening further and not being closed, not shrinking the definition of who belongs here, who deserves to count as a full human being created in the image of the divine, every human being at every time in our lives, every period in our lives. So I'm excited that this is the Torah portion. Somebody should give a shout out at the rally tomorrow. We have this choice tomorrow, and we have this choice and opportunity really every day as Jews, as Americans, as Jewish Americans, as human beings, to to live up to the idea that every human being is a holy soul, a person with divine potential, with the divine spark, with infinitely more than we can possibly know. And can we try to get a bigger glimpse of who we are in our interactions with each other? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi Sohn.